1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We are also streaming on nccradio.org. That's our website, nccradio.org. Hear us all over the world. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com and all of your favorite podcast locations. This program is repeated Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And you know why I say that? Because it all depends when you are listening or watching. Hey, Gavalt, you can see us on Facebook Live at WHPC or on my own page at facebook.com/Anshel Pearl. So good morning. Hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. As we say good morning to everybody out there, to Jean, and to everybody joining us both on the radio and online and on the world of Facebook. First, I'm going to discuss the significance of this weekend, yesterday and today, the 19th and the 20th day of the month of Kislev, the significance of these days on the Jewish calendar. And then we'll go into an interesting question about, is it okay in the Jewish law to play Lotto? And then we will get into the current world of discussion and insight and concerns over anti-Semitism. So welcome to Linda and Jeannie and to everybody else. So yesterday and today on the calendar is the 19th and the 20th day of the month of Kislev. And I take you back now to the year 1798. Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi. He is a leading disciple of Rabbi Dov Ber Mezrich and the founder of the Chabad Hasidism. This was the day when he was released from his imprisonment in Peter Paul Fortress in Petersburg. That would be, afterwards became known as Leningrad, went back to Petersburg. There he was held for 53 days on charges that his teachings threatened the imperial authority of the Tsar. More than a personal liberation, this was a watershed event in the history of Hasidism, heralding a new era in the revelation of the inner soul of Torah. And yesterday and today, it is celebrated in the Chabad community as a Rosh Hashanah of Hasidism. A new year for the study and the insights of what Hasidism and its contribution to the world. So today and yesterday, we are celebrating the date when the founding master of Chabad Hasidism was freed from imprisonment, and to understand its watershed event and its impact on Jewish life, Jewish thinking, the background, and I will also share with you some of the specific insights to the teachings itself. It'll be amazing. It'll be really mind-boggling to appreciate how aspects of this philosophy has now become part of modern-day psychology and psychiatry in many aspects as well. So let's understand this. Hasidism, in fact, the teachings of Hasidism, its subject, began generations earlier. The founding Hasidic master of all Hasidic teachings is Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. He revealed to his disciples gleanings from the mystical soul of the Torah, which had been only the sole providence of select individuals. So only select individuals throughout earlier Jewish history knew and studied the mystical sides of Jewish life. This continued and now became more revealed by the Baal Shem Tov, then continued with his disciple called Rab Dov Ber, who is also very deeply connected to this date because he actually passed away on the 19th day of Kislev. So you have the Baal Shem Tov, his student, and then came when the Maggid of Mezrich passed away in 1772. This was 26 years before Rabbi Shneir Zalman was released from prison. He passed away. But before he passed away, he said to his disciple, who was Rabbi Shneur Zalman, "This day is our Yom Tov, is our festival." And this is what we're celebrating, what I'm sharing with you today. Rabbi Shneur Zalman took the Hasidic perspectives and outlooks much further than his predecessors, bringing these teachings to a much broader segment of Jewish population of Eastern Europe at that time. And so when you hear about Hasidic movements in different locations, for example, around the New York area, many of the Hasidic movements are known by the earlier towns and locations where they settled. You've heard of Bobov, you've heard of Satmar, you've heard of Belz. There are many, many groups. Well, what I'm here to share with you, what I'm part of, is the Chabad Hasidic movement. And it was Rabbi Shneur Zalman that we're celebrating today, who created and became known as the Chabad approach to Hasidic thought. What is this Chabad approach? It's a philosophy and a system of study, meditation, and character refinement that made these abstract concepts of mystical teachings rationally comprehensible and, most importantly, practically applicable in our daily life. So, why was the Alter Rebbe in prison? He was in prison for 53 days. In its formative years, the Hasidic movement was the object of a very strong and often venomous opposition from the establishment of rabbis and laymen of that time. Even within the Hasidic community, a number of Rabbi Shneur Zalman's contemporaries felt that he had gone too far in tangibalizing and popularizing this hidden soul of the Torah. And what happened? In the fall of 1798, he was arrested on charges that his teachings and activities threatened the imperial authority of the Tsar. And he was imprisoned in an island fortress in Nevar, on the Nevar River in Petersburg. And during his interrogations, he was compelled to present to the Tsar's ministers the basic tenets of Judaism and explain various points of Hasidic philosophy and practice. Well, dear friends, after 53 days, he was exonerated of all the charges and he was released. And so this is what we're celebrating. This is what I'm sharing with you, the significance of this release. Rabbi Shneur Zalman saw these events, not just simply his own personal imprisonment, but he saw this as a reflection of what was transpiring above. He regarded his arrest as but the earthly echo of a heavenly indictment against his revelation. You know, these were secrets of the Torah. And why was he now revealing them to everybody? So he saw that what was going on in his own life is perhaps more a decree of a tumult, you could say, of what was going upstairs. And he saw his release as signifying that he had now been vindicated, not only by the courts here, but also in the heavenly courts as well. And so following his liberation on the 19th of Kislev, he went about, he redoubled his efforts, disseminating his teachings on a far broader scale and with even more detailed and down-to-earth explanations than before. So this day marks the birth of Hasidism, when the long-hidden secrets of Judaism now were able to emerge, so to speak, from the womb of mysticism to be able to illuminate and transform the totality of Jewish life. And before I go into some of the deeper aspects of this philosophy itself, I just want to express how so many areas, for example, the concept of what ticks inside of us, the fact we all have a soul, and we must illuminate the world with goodness and kindness, the recognition of a world that is here to be turned, it's not a jungle, but a world that can become a home for the Almighty God. All these things come from Hasidic philosophy. So I'm going to share with you some of the precocious aspects of the psychology of Chabad, as we say good morning to Peter Hirschhorn. And anybody has any comments or thoughts, feel free to post them on my Facebook page, and I'll be happy to share with this and respond. So what is, when you hear Chabad, typically people think of it of the local Chabad house, the Chabad rabbi and his rebbetzin in a particular area. There are 5,000 plus Chabad rabbis and their rebbetzin co-directors of the Chabad houses. But it all is based on a very, very, very important and deep psychology, Hasidic thinking of Chabad. A century, maybe 100 years before Sigmund Freud, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founding Hasidic rabbi of the Chabad, he laid out a very sophisticated map of the dynamics of the human psyche. He called his method, the method that I'm sharing with you, Chabad. So while we all joke and think of Chabad, maybe the name of the local synagogue or the name it used to write out a check to support its work, it actually reflects the basic dynamics of a very, very deep and enlightening outlook in life. The word Chabad is an acronym for three faculties of the mind. Ches, Beis, Dalet stands for Chachma, Bina, and Das. In 1795, he published a book that today is known as Tanya. There he laid out, step by step, his approach to human psychology and its applications for spiritual growth. And it is very popular in all Chabad houses to have classes in the study of Tanya. In fact, at our Chabad, every 2 weeks, on Monday evenings at 7 p.m., we study Tanya. And everyone is welcome to join us. It starts at 7 on time and ends on time, 1 hour of the study of Tanya. And tomorrow night, everyone is welcome to join us. Now, what exactly does the Tanya talk about? The psychology of Tanya is extraordinary, rich and sophisticated. I studied the Tanya, I was taught the Tanya as a yeshiva boy in Paris at great depth with some world-renowned teachers, in particular Nissan Nemanov, Olav Shalom. He was my teacher of Tanya. It has been heavily extended and expanded since. The richness, the definition, the elaboration, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. But let me share with you something that you will see is so up to date with our world that we live in today. Let me first quote from Professor Jonathan Garb of Hebrew University, where he says there is more about the human psychic in Chabad literature than in all of the rest of Jewish literature combined. The study of Tanya is something that is recognized, honored, and studied in every corner of the world. Doesn't matter from, obviously within the Chabad community itself, but even in other Hasidic communities and other wider communities, everybody recognizes the uniqueness of this study of what is the foundation, began by this founding father, so to speak, founding Rebbe of the Chabad movement, who we celebrate his release from prison this day. Now, if you've ever studied any of the modern secular schools of psychology, much of Rab Shneur Zalman's soul dynamics will appear familiar to you. But failing to mark, and I hope to share with you, the stark points of departure, in other words, we have to pause and understand the unique approach. This is not just another psychology book. But to fail to mark those stark points would be like eating exotic cuisine flooded with ketchup. And I know that Sybil and Dorothy, they have more ketchup in their house than anybody anywhere else. And if you can't find any ketchup, just give me a call and I will let you know where you can pick up an extra, a case of ketchup. Most obvious is the central place of the soul's yearning for union with the divine. This is an amazing thing. That built into every one of us, there is a side of us that constantly is yearning to connect to Hashem, to the divine. But more interestingly, and less noted, and certainly less understood, are the fascinating and unique metaphors that force us to shift the way we perceive life as a human being. Let me explain. For one, your life, our life, according to the Tanya, is less about who you are and more about what you wear. Hang in, and I'll explain. Yeah, you heard that correctly. In Tanya, you don't behave in a certain way. You get dressed up in it. Your conscious thoughts, your spoken words, as well as your physical activities are not just things you do. They are your wardrobe. They are the way you are expressed. How do I know what you are? How do you know what I am? And we're going to learn it comes through what I say, what I do, as a result of what I'm thinking. So it's your wardrobe that counts. The way we are dressed, the way we are seen. Most ethical works discuss moral behavior. Tanya uses that word not once. Instead, the signature metaphor in Tanya to describe all of human activities popping up in some form or another on almost every page is the word levushim, clothing. Speaks a lot about the clothes that a human person wears. This is not just lingo. It's a fundamentally different understanding of the human psychic. But to explain that, we first need to clarify why did this Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman, what did he mean by this metaphor? Where does he get it from? And what is its implications if we are to look at another human being and recognize them through their clothes, through their levushim, through their garments? We must appreciate, obviously our psychic doesn't need clothing to stay warm in the winter. So when Rabbi Shneir Zalman is speaking about our soul's clothing, he's speaking about clothing not as utilities, but in their cosmetic sense. Our clothes, your clothes, are our interface with the world. The world knows you, and you know it through what you wear. You can go places you couldn't go otherwise because you have now shoes or boots. You can pick up things you would otherwise never touch because you have gloves. Doors that would otherwise remain shut open for you just because you wear a fancy suit. Your clothes fit you and you fit them. If they are well tailored and customized, they do something quite amazing. They present you by covering you. Good clothes bring out the true you by artfully concealing the outer you and directing attention to those aspects of what you are most meaningful. So even though when we go to work, we are dressed well, dressed appropriately, at the end of the day, our worthiness is what we call what is being expressed. The way we speak, the way we act, what our thoughts are, those are the garments of the soul. This concealed to reveal dynamic is especially the case when speaking of clothes of our human psychic. Generally, clothes obstruct people's vision, but your psychic first becomes visible only once it is clothed. Language is the inner clothing of the human psychic, making it visible not only to others, but to yourself as well. Right now, all of us listening, all of us talking, how do I know what I am, what I'm doing? Is because I'm thinking. That's one of my clothings. We become conscious of our thoughts and emotions only once they speak to you in language, imagery, and sounds in your mind. They remain invisible to others until they emerge as spoken words and physical movements and actions. So why do we call this clothing? Why do we call thought, speech, and action garments of the soul? Why are they called garments? Why not just call them expressions or reflections of the soul? And you know why? Because they never really leave you. Like clothes, you go out inside them. Your clothes become you, and you too become them. Much the same way that you identify with a character in a story, and thereby live that story vicariously, so you identify with your clothes. So think of it. Dress as an officer of the law, okay, you become the law. Dress as a clown, and you begin to feel and act silly. Dress in a business suit, your demeanor becomes orderly and formal. Dress in track pants and a t-shirt, I guess you begin to chill. If I smash the mirror that reflects your image, you walk away unscathed. But if I grab your clothing, I grab you. If I criticize your words or deeds, you feel slighted. If I examine them, I find you within them. Yet nevertheless, like clothing, and like your empathy for a fictional character in a story, you can slip out of your words and actions as easy as you got into them. Your habits, your words, the chatter in your mind, they are not you, just as clothing is not you. At any moment, you can decide to create new habits, choose happier words, and think more pleasant thoughts. So the Chabad Hasidic philosophy that we're celebrating today is the importance of those clothes of the soul. This is the imminence that the Rabbi Shneur Zalman wants to bring across with his metaphor for clothing for the human behavior. Humans don't just do things, they live inside them. Perhaps a better word, if somewhat archaic, is vestments. Tanya is not about how you should or should not behave. It's about where you should invest yourself, specifically in what thoughts, in what words, and in what physical activities that we're doing. Those activities, what we are thinking and what we're saying and what we're doing, are considered our clothing, not our behavior. And you need to make sure that they fit you and suit you well. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, whom Rabbi Shneur Zalman referred to as his spiritual grandfather, was fond of saying, wherever you put your thoughts, that is where you are, all of you. As human beings, we are incapable of seriously considering an idea without somehow identifying with it, sensing what it would be like to accept it, entering and occupying the space of that idea with our head, our heart, our hands, and our feet. We can never truly enter an idea and walk out the same. If this is true with a thought, all the more so with our words and our actions. So when words come out of our mouths, we go out with them. You come to believe what you say and to doubt the things you do not say. When your actions manipulate your environment, your actions and your environment manipulate you. You may feel you are the master of your tools, your achievements, and your creations, but as you mold them, they mold you and pull you in directions you would never otherwise have journeyed. As the anonymous 13th century author of the Sefer HaChinuch writes, your attitudes follow your actions. You become what you do. This clothing of the soul has 3 layers. The outer layer includes all of our physical actions, lifting a finger, eating breakfast, walking, breathing, sleeping, procreating, any way a limb of your body might move. The 2 other layers, as we said, have to do with language. We use language to communicate to others. This is our intermediary layer of clothing. But you also use language to communicate with yourself. That's our innermost layer of clothing. That's our power to think. So there's thinking, That's the most innermost layer of clothing, our thoughts. A little more external is our speech, and even more external is our actions. So the inner layer is called machshava, which is generally translated as thought. But it's important to note that it doesn't refer to the cognitive process. Rather, it means by which you articulate your thoughts and feelings to yourself and become conscious of them. Yet, as with clothing, so to the language in which your cognition is clothed allows you to extend what you're thinking into further away when you speak, to places the mind could never go to without the tool of language. So you have an idea, you thought about it, but that's inside of you. The next stage is to let it out, is to speak. That's the next level, and further, even further. So the clothes that fit your inner soul, according to the Tanya, and this is the reason why today is so significant and for us to celebrate it. According to the Tanya, we all have two souls. We have a human soul, which itself contains many strata and conflicting elements, but it's basically an animal with a large brain and the capacity for speech. And you have a divine soul, the one that God breathed into Adam after he was formed. This is the soul that Rabbi Shneur Zalman calls Chelek Elokai Mimal Mamish, a sliver of God from above. The divine soul is clothed within the human animal soul. She has no means of expression in this world except through the outer being. The human soul is the outer you, and the divine soul is the inner you. Clothes have to fit. Otherwise, they're not clothes. They would be called sacks. That's why they call it Saks Fifth Avenue. The outer human soul is the one producing the clothes. So whatever comes off her production line fits her. The inner divine soul is more particular. The only clothes that fit her are those prescribed by God himself and through the Torah. But where does she find them? Ironically, in the same production factory of that human soul. Indeed, that's why she invests herself within such a beast and in such a world. This world is a clothing outlet for the divine soul. The only way the soul gets to do what it's supposed to do is through its body. And therefore, it's the exclusive importer. And this human animal that you inhabit is the only manufacturer. So therefore, love, awe, wonder, spiritual heights, all these the divine soul had above in her heavenly womb. That's what this, that's all those, that's built into the soul. Now, the soul, as in every one of us, has now descended to this place, into her body, to gain something that she could not get up there. And that is good clothes. The soul upstairs is pristine in its original fashion. It comes into this world and now is covered up. That's the good clothes, so to speak. Clothes that will allow her to discover what she truly is. So, in more simpler terms, if you want to know how your soul is doing, think about your thoughts, your speech, and your action. Because they are the clothes through which the soul can only express itself. She needs to do things from within the human physical form. And that is to speak the words of Torah wisdom with her lips, to eat matzah on Passover, to sit in the sukkah on Sukkot, to eat delicious food on Shabbos, to raise children in this world, find God in all of human life, and to perform all the mitzvahs that we can do on this physical world. She has no other clothes. The soul is meaningless, it just sits idle if it's not allowed to express itself through its clothes. Nothing else will fit her. There are no other activities, words, or thoughts that can provide expression for a divine soul except through needing to dress in God's clothes. The godly soul that we have is dressed up in God's clothes. It's through the thought of holiness, the thoughts of Torah, the speech, action with mitzvahs. She can only dress in that clothing because within these clothes, God himself is found. And she, after all, is nothing less than a sample of God from above. So as Rabbi Shneur Zalman puts in the chapter 4 of Tanya, if you are doing all you can to keep your thoughts engaged in understanding all the Torah that you can grasp, your mouth is articulating all that you are learning, and doing all the mitzvahs that you can, guess what? Then your divine soul is fully decked out. We happen to be in our class up to chapter 6, where we talk about the other side of us. So all the other things that we do in life is not the clothing, an expression of the soul itself. But if none of those thoughts, words, or actions line up with any of those, they provide clothing for your human animal soul alone. So eating and drinking and all the other things, we have to be careful. Which clothes are we presenting with? Are we expressing ourselves through the clothes of the animal soul, or is it through the godly soul? Our divine soul, the inner you, goes bare. If a person spends all of his life only in thinking materialistic things, speaking stupidities and acting, then unfortunately that leaves our divine soul bare, with no real presence in this world. The whole goal of life is to be born and to bring godliness into this world. So where did he get this idea from? Where did Rabbi Shneur Zalman Liadi get this idea? The Zohar describes the ascent of the soul in the afterlife, the various levels to which she rises, and the chambers that she enters. It describes how the mitzvahs that we have done in this world clothe and protect our soul as she makes this ascent. We all know in Jewish tradition, when a person is laid to rest, the rabbi usually keeps on repeating the person's Jewish name. Knowing one's Jewish name when we arise up in heaven is the entree, is the key to allowing that soul to reach its highest potential based on all the many good things that we did in this world. So when a person fills their clothes, expresses their soul appropriately in this world, it creates a sort of a protective suit, allowing one's soul to absorb and enjoy the rays of divine light that shine in those higher realms. So what's the message? What are we talking about? Get the clothing down here while we can. A person should spend every moment and appreciate the fact that we have a soul, and the way to put the clothes on that soul is very specific. Get the clothing down here while we can, because all the clothes that we wear, in the simple terms, the way we think, the way we talk, the way we act in this world becomes very important later on in life. It's similar to what the teachings of the Mishnah that says this world is to be seen like a foyer before the grand hall. It's like the smorgasbord before you go into the main ballroom. And as the Mishnah says, fix up yourself in the foyer before you enter into the grand hall. In Tanya, however, the message is quite different. Here we're talking about dressing up for the sake of dressing up. This fits in with Rabbi Shneur Zalman's general view of things. We're not just doing things, although there is that, we're doing today for, so to speak, to invest in tomorrow on many levels. Living today, Torah is to be studied not for the sake of acquiring knowledge or even inspiration and guidance it provides, but for the moment of total immersion within the divine wisdom. Prayer is not to be seen as a means of getting to the things we just simply want from God, but prayer is for the sake of simply a communion with God at the time of prayer. Mitzvahs as well are not just a means to an end or an investment in the future. At that time, the person will be enclosed within a mitzvah. You are there already. When a person does a mitzvah, we touch God himself. Not his light, not his spiritual bliss, but the core essence of what it means to be God and what it means to be a human being on a mission of truth and kindness. Until now, you are a creation. even as your divine soul stood above before it descended into this world, she was a created being, loving God, wonderment of God. In the act of a mitzvah, she finds her purpose, her meaning, and her true self. She transcends the realm of created being to become one with God. So there's the way the soul was before it was created, before it came into our mother and into us, into our life, and then there's what we accomplish ourselves. That's much as the Mishnah tells us, Schar mitzvah mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. And one moment of return to God and good deeds in this world is much better than all the bliss of the world to come. If you don't feel it, that makes sense. There is no living creature, not in this world, not in any spiritual realm, that can experience such a thing and continue to exist. As God tells Moses, no one can see me and live. It also explains why, according to the majority view, the ultimate reward of the soul is not in any higher spiritual world, but in this world. After the Messianic era, all the souls in those heavenly realms, even those of Abraham and Moses and Esther and Devorah, will return to their physical bodies, refurbished and refitted. And within those bodies, they will experience for the first time the true pleasure of the union with God's essence that they achieved over their lifetime through their Torah and mitzvahs, something only accessible in this earthly world. So again, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, who we celebrate today, his freedom from prison, but his the ability to come out into this world and to share, the main point is that the ultimate experience is in this world. That's why in our world we celebrate life. We don't celebrate crime. We don't celebrate murder. We celebrate life. So our question today is, what will we wear today? At any moment, we get to choose the clothes for our soul. This notion is crucial to the thesis of Tanya. Tanya distinguishes between the tzaddik and the Beinoni. A tzaddik is a rare and special individual. To become a tzaddik is to have gained mastery over your mind and heart, never to feel anger or bear a grudge, to despise evil with every cell of our bodies, and to love God with a pure, undivided heart, and seek Him in all things, in all ways. But let's be honest, the vast majority of us were not placed on this world to become such a righteous tzaddik. The mission for most of us is to be a Beinoni, which literally means the guy in between. To be a Beinoni is to be the master of our clothing. In many ways, a much more difficult task. But then, your clothing can take you higher than your mind and your heart ever can. And realizing this distinction, Rabbi Shneur Zalman shares with us, saves the Beinoni, if we realize that, from the crippling hold of frustration and guilt. A person who, sees himself constantly in a struggle can very easily say, that's a sign that I'm wasting my time and I'll just keep on doing whatever I feel like. No, what we're learning from the Beinoni is that a person can take control of those clothes of the soul. Otherwise, the person will always live a life crippled with frustration and guilt. And the Alter Rebbe's perspective is that whatever is going on, there's still a place for fruitful spiritual growth. Please, this is what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us today. Don't kick yourself for desiring the wrong things, for the anger seething in your heart, or the tempestuous thoughts swirling in your head. Chill out. As long as you don't act upon those desires, speak out in anger, or deliberately choose to entertain those nasty thoughts, you're okay. If you fail at times, and we all do, look, it goes with the territory. Pick yourself up, tell your maker of your regret, resolve to stick with him, and from now on, get on with life. This is what the Alter Rebbe tells us. And if you will fill your mind with the right thoughts, speak the good things, and act civilly and kindly even to those who annoy you, you're accomplishing something the greatest tzaddik could not achieve. You're transforming yourself and raising up the entire world along with you. So again, the clothes make the soul. Clothes can change you because, like those icons on your electronic display, they provide an interface in two directions. Because you can observe yourself due to these clothes, you're empowered to change yourself. Now that you know who you are and where you are holding, you can create new habits, do different things, speak differently, think different thoughts. When you choose to think uplifting thoughts, use positive words when you talk, and do good things despite your mood, you find your mood shifting and your personality moving along with them. True, you can't suddenly change who you are by just changing your clothes. You don't have to. You only need to give that inner divine soul the clothes she needs to express itself. Gradually, your human outer personality will adapt as well. The animal side of us, the human side, suddenly starts to look up because we've allowed our neshama to be dressed in the way Torah tells us, the thought, the speech, and the action, and it'll have gradually a change on our whole personality. Even the way of thinking will eventually transform. One day, you turn around and you're a whole new person. Then you can say, see this person I'm now? I made that. Did you make yourself? In a way. By dressing in clothes that match your inner soul, you allowed her to emerge. And when that happens, when a person allows their neshama to come to the forefront, we become a whole different new person. We were speaking on Shabbos. We were speaking in Shul on Shabbos, Doctor, about the Jewish way of looking at the world. And that is, everything we do, we don't just think of the moment. And if a person thinks within the context of 2 days, 3 days, a year, 2 years, they can come with the wrong conclusions. Many of the anti-Semitic talk against Israel is because the people reacting only see a small picture. And we were talking in Shul that if a person spends time with others in a synagogue environment, studies the Torah, we will find that the inner clothes of the person starts to expand. What do I mean? Everything we do, think of every holiday. Show me one holiday that is not related to a historical view. Hanukkah, Pesach, Shavuos. Every holiday has its historical beginning. Why is that? Because everything we do must be seen in a wide space of history. What is going on today in Israel and what's going on around the world is nothing new to us because we have a much broader picture. A much broader picture of what life is all about. We get that from our study, our connection to the Torah portion, where we get insights to everything, many of the Jewish laws, everything around in our life provides us with a much more sincere, open, broad, honest understanding of world. And in our world, we don't only see the beginnings. We don't even see, well, only do we see what's going on now, but we also know what the future will bring. And the future will bring, my dear friends, the coming of Mashiach, when all those who gave up their life will come back. And all the different wars and all the different situations and all those of our loved one will come back, and there will be peace for the whole world. In our world, we're not looking forward to everybody looking the same or being forced to live a certain way. We're looking forward to the world that incorporates so many good people. That's why, by dressing in clothes that match our inner soul, we express ourselves. We are allowing our true self to emerge. And when that happens, we are a totally new person. That's the whole point of life on planet Earth. Not to be perfect, but to get the clothes you need to become self-made soul. And nothing can be more divine. Tough subject, my friends. with many, many aspects to this, and I'm really enjoying, as I see the corner of my eye, the wonderful comments being made by those on our Facebook Live. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. My friends, I'd like to just share with you, a little lighter here. Is it kosher to play Lotto? I know, but I know that this is something that many people can't sleep at night. If you're wondering whether playing the Lotto aligns with Jewish teachings, you're not alone. In many ways, playing the Lotto resembles gambling, which is frowned upon in Judaism and may even be forbidden by Jewish law. But there are some nuances that make buying that Lotto ticket okay. So you can rest, everybody. Take it easy. Take it easy. I know you're ready. You're about to turn off the radio. You say, how can I listen to this rabbi about not buying I got to buy my Lotto ticket. I buy Cholent. I buy Kugel. I got to buy my Lotto. So I said, take it easy. You're okay. Let me explain. You're okay. Let's start by understanding the Jewish approach to gambling. Gambling. The Mishnah lists several classes of people who are generally disqualified from being witnesses, including those who play with dice, which was then a classic form of gambling. The Talmud brings two opinions as to why this is so. One rabbi explains that when the winner takes money from the loser, it's as if he's stealing. Why? Because when the loser agreed to play, he never expected to lose, or he would never have agreed to play in the first place. This form of agreement, accepting significant financial responsibility under the assumption that you'll never really have to pay, is known as an asmachta. Conversely, Rabbi Sheshes, the other rabbi, is of the opinion that we are only concerned with an asmachta in a game that requires some measure of skill, since the player believes he's in control of the outcome and can reasonably expect to win. In a game that is entirely based on luck, everyone plays knowing there is a chance they will lose, and therefore collecting winnings would therefore be permitted. Rather, in his understanding, the main issue with gambling is that a gambler does not contribute to society in any way. So Rav Sheshes would only disqualify a witness if gambling was his sole profession, and he therefore had no real means of contributing to society. In practice, interestingly, there's a difference between the Sephardim and the Ashkenaz. Rabbi Yosef Kaira in the Code of Jewish Law rules to the opinion that all kinds of gambling is prohibited, even dice and other luck-based games. Others, including Rabbi Moshe Isserles, rules according to the opinion that one may gamble with games that are entirely based on luck. Guess what? The Sephardic communities generally follow the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Kaira and are stringent. Excuse me, while Ashkenazim generally follow the approach that some gambling is technically permitted. Yet even those who permit gambling under certain circumstances decry it as an immoral and a repulsive activity that can lead to all sorts of negative consequences. So let's shift gear to buying a lottery ticket. I was talking about playing gambling, going to Atlantic City, in Las Vegas, etc. But what about buying a lottery ticket? Is it the same as gambling, or is there room for leniency? There's a spectrum of opinions here. Some of the opinion they are quite similar, in which case buying a lottery ticket would be permissible for Ashkenazi communities and prohibited by the Sephardic communities. Most halachic authorities, however, point out a number of key differences between playing the lotto and gambling, in which case even the Sephardic communities, I know that there's a big sigh of relief I can hear over my headphones amongst the Sephardic communities, which would permit to buy a lottery ticket. And here are the few distinctions. First of all, when betting or gambling, you usually pay when you lose. So to some extent, you rely on winning the bet. But when you pay in advance for a lottery ticket, you acknowledge the possibility of losing and giving your money with a full heart. With gambling, one person wins and the other loses. If you're paying for the bet and you had some assumption or anticipation that would win, that would be considered a problem. In lottery, the payout is guaranteed to occur, and the organization or the government overseeing the lottery and dispersing the winners does not operate under the assumption that they will win. On the contrary, They want to give a payout because that's how they make even more money in the long run. Since the odds of actually winning are extremely low, no one purchases a ticket with a real assumption that they're going to win. Therefore, doing so would not be considered an asmachta, as I said earlier, accepting significant financial responsibility under the assumption that you'll never really have to pay it. Another idea is, since a lotto ticket has a specific value, purchasing a lottery ticket is considered a transaction involving an acquisition of a product rather than a form of gambling. Prior to the lottery drawing, you even have the option to sell the ticket for its initial purchase price. As a result, you are essentially participating in an investment where some of the funds collected are allocated to cover expenses, while the remaining amount is distributed as dividends to randomly selected investors. So, if you buy a raffle ticket as part of a fundraiser for a charitable organization, then even if you lose, there's no problem. Giving the money is a mitzvah, and the assumption is that you gave it willingly, regardless of whether you win. I want to tell you something. As evident from this discussion, buying a lottery ticket is acceptable according to Jewish law, but it's essential to remember that, like gambling, purchasing lottery tickets can be highly addictive. Certain lotteries specifically target individuals with addictive tendencies, exacerbating the financial difficulties of those already struggling. I've stood in stores buying some food, and I see people who are hardworking and, who live on a set income, and they get paid on Friday, and right away they're giving $100 over there to buy these tickets. There are anecdotes in which the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself advised individuals to purchase a lottery ticket. But when asked about playing the lotto, he would say to buy just one ticket, because if God wills that you win, one ticket is enough to accomplish the job. I think Kim also agrees with me. Interestingly, the Rebbe records in his notes that the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, actually purchased lottery tickets many times for himself and for his son. We talk back in Russia, and the Rebbe Marash. There was a manuscript found in his writings that says he was praying, "May it be the will of Hashem that Reb Shmuel should win the lottery." The Rebbe adds that the Rebbe Marash actually won the lottery a number of times, and it was quite a significant sum. By the way, the Tzemach Tzedek, he never won the lottery. So other leading rabbis would also purchase a lottery ticket from time to time as a means of creating a medium to channel God's blessings. So if it worked, right, it's God's blessings. Ultimately, we should all know that our livelihood comes from God, and we need to trust and have faith in Hashem. All that is needed from us is to make a vessel for the blessings. Okay, so I see that the comments are coming in fast and furious. I want to thank you all for those comments, and it's very inspiring. So, my friends, we are living in very difficult times, and sometimes, like we're grasping for air. I vividly remember playing football as a child and seeing a fellow student getting hit, accidentally of course, in the solar plexus. He was gasping for air. It felt like he would never catch his breath or breathe normally again. I think, if we're honest with ourselves, we've all had that feeling lately. The horrors of October the 7th knocked the wind out of us, and we haven't really caught our breath since. We've been overwhelmed by the grief and the sadness and the worry and the concern. And now we are 2 months into the war, and neither the situation nor we are getting better at any time soon. As the hostages have been released, we have learnt of the inhuman, barbaric ways that they were treated. And if I'm correct, over 150 are still being kept captive. Our soldiers remain on the front, fighting for their lives and our lives. The enormous spike in antisemitism in this country and around the world is alarming, frightening, and deeply concerning. When we consider the reality right in front of us, it's hard not to despair or grow despondent. Look at this. So many around Israel seek her demise, God forbid. We see what's going on around the world. Watching person after person, I'm sure you must have heard what went on in a city council in the California area, where people stood up excusing, glorifying the action of the enemy, and all kinds of things. Sympathizing with terrorists can really make a person feel hopeless in a situation beyond repair. So how can we find hope when there's so much, when we feel that way? How can we long for and bring redemption when things seem to be so hard? So for one thing, we can find strength in the holiday of Hanukkah, which couldn't have come at a better time. Hanukkah is defined by our sense of sight. As I said beforehand, we live with history. We don't just think of the present moment. We think of what happened before, what's happening now. We know what's going on into the future. Hanukkah is defined by our sense of sight. Haneris halolu. These candles are sacred. We don't have permission to benefit from their light, but their entire purpose is simply to be looked at. We have a very unique law in Hanukkah. The Talmud tells us and talks about Haroya Mavarach, one who can't light for themselves or herself, but sees the candles lit by someone else, nevertheless makes the blessing the second blessing. When I see someone put on tefillin, take a lulav or blow a shofar, I don't make a blessing. Only on Hanukkah do I make the blessing when seeing someone else perform the mitzvah. Why? As the rabbis tell us, the holidays of Hanukkah is about seeing. Each holiday has different senses. On Purim we hear the Megillah. Pesach we use the sense of taste is sharpened by when we eat matzah and maror. On Hanukkah, the rabbis tell us we evaluate our sense of sight, tasting how well we see. The truth is, in a paradoxical way, our eyes are a liability. We often feel that seeing is believing. If I can perceive and observe it, it is true. If I can't, it's not real. Following this rule, we have dismissed and disregarded the most precious truths of realities in our lives. There are ideas, feelings, thoughts, and dreams that are authentic and genuine, despite the fact that they can't be seen or observed. This is what Hanukkah is all about. It was a time of darkness. Nevertheless, within the darkness, we are able to overcome that, and the candles lit for 8 days. And my friends, we're now going into that period of time when Metz Hashem, we will once again see. We are people of vision, and we have the capacity to see beyond, to dream of what could be. The truth is, one can live with their eyes open, have perfect vision, and still be cloaked in darkness. On the other hand, it can be pitch black all around, yet a person can see absolutely clearly. Therefore, during the story of Hanukkah, the Hasmoneans didn't just look at the reality. They saw the few numbers, they saw a weak army, impossible tasks. What did they think? What did they focus on? What did they really see? The mighty hand of Hashem. They saw the obligation to go out and take care of business, to fight. They saw the divine protection that would accompany them. We have been charged as a people throughout our history to not to simply look in what is in front of us. If we had, we would have given up a long time ago. We've faced the impossible odds. We have confronted impossible challenges. Nevertheless, we have succeeded in retaining our hope and our optimism because we choose to have vision instead of just sight, imagination instead of just observation. Can you imagine if Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, what he would have accomplished if he got all bent out of shape because of a Pharaoh? My friends, I leave you with this thought. Am Yisrael Chai. Hanukkah is coming. Metz Hashem. We will all see good things, both physically and spiritually. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful preparation for Hanukkah.